Hi, the fact that you're here means that you're either one of my students required to watch this video or someone who are looking for assistance in writing your research manuscript. Either way, you are welcome here. This video is the first of a lesson series on how to write your research proposal and how to prepare for your oral presentation. Research has been described as a roller coaster ride by many student researchers, both in the undergrad and graduate level. Although writing and conducting your research entails a certain level of difficulty, it doesn't always have to be a nerve-wracking experience. I believe that there is a sweet spot in doing research where you are experiencing a good amount of pressure and stress to challenge you while having fun and staying interested in your endeavor. The psychologist and author Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi described this as the state of flow, or better known as being in the zone. I am Dex Kamitan, a PhD student and lecturer at the University of the Philippines, a research professor at the Manila Titana Colleges, a big psychology nerd, and I will help you write and defend your research proposal. Now, deciding on a topic for your thesis, dissertation, or just your research project is the first step in making your research go smoothly as possible. When choosing a topic, it's important to consider your institutional or department's requirement, your area of knowledge and interest, the scientific and social or practical relevance of your topic, and the availability of data and sources, and also the length of time of your research. If you have no research idea yet, it can be hard to know where to start. Following this video will help you narrow down your ideas. Now, the very first step is to check the practical requirements of your educational program. This determines the scope of what it is possible for you to research in. Now, one of the first questions that you have to understand or you have to answer is that, do you have to choose from a list of topics or do you have to think of a topic for yourself? Also, you have to consider whether you should the research have an academic or professional orientation. Number three, you also have to ask yourself, are there any methodological conditions? For example, do you have to write a quantitative study or use a specific type of source? Also, you have to consider, are there any other restrictions such as does your institution or rather, there are institutions who do not like topics like sex and religion to be studied in research. Some programs will have stricter requirements than others. You might be given nothing more than a word count and a deadline, or you might have a restricted list of topics and approaches to choose from. If in doubt about what is expected of you, always ask your course or department coordinator. MTC is rather liberated in this regard so that you are free to choose your own topic and there are no methodological restrictions. Now, the first step that you have to do is to choose a broad field of research. Start by thinking about your areas of interest within the subject you're studying. Examples of such broad ideas include COVID-19 and mental health, online learning during the COVID-19 pandemic, or feminism in the Philippines, or even religion. It is advisable to choose a topic that you are interested in, since this endeavor is at least 2 semesters long. Your job will be more pleasant and you will be more apt to retain information if you choose a topic that holds your interest. Actually, one of the worst things that you can do to yourself is to commit to a research topic you are not interested in. It's also a good idea to pick a field that you already have some familiarity with, so that you don't have to start your research completely from scratch. You don't have to be an expert on the topic, but if you've already read a few articles, that gives you a good starting point to find out more about your topic. Now, the second step is to find a niche. Now, try skimming through a few recent issues of the top journals in your field, as well as looking at their most cited articles. For inspiration, you can also search Google Scholar, Wiley online libraries, or your institutional library resources. If you've already read some articles in the field, check their reference list to find more useful sources. As you read, note down any specific ideas that interest you and make a short list of possible topics. Once you have decided on a topic and determine that enough information is available, you are ready to proceed. Now, at this point, however, if you are having trouble finding adequate information, stop wasting your time and find another topic. After doing some initial reading, it's time to start narrowing down your broad areas. Now, this can be a gradual process, and your topic should get more and more specific along the way. For example, the topic COVID-19 and mental health is actually too broad. You may want to focus on specific areas of mental health like mental health issues, coping, well-being elements, and even resiliency. You can further narrow this down to mental health issues and coping of medical frontline workers during COVID-19, or the relationship between well-being elements and resiliency of students who are in remote class during the COVID-19 pandemic. All these topics are still too broad. That you'll find a huge amount of books and articles about them. Now, try to find a specific niche that not many people have researched yet, such as a neglected aspect of mental health or time period. A question that's still being debated, or a very current practical issue. If there's already a lot of research and a strong consensus on your topic, it will be more difficult to justify the relevance of your work. But you should make sure that there is enough literature on the topic to provide a strong basis for your own research. At this stage, make sure you have a few backup ideas. There's still time to change your focus. I, for one, require my students to have at least 3 distinct topics prepared. If your topic doesn't make it through the next few steps, you can try a different one. Later, you will narrow your focus down even more if in your problem statement and research question. But here's a pro tip. Create a mind map. Now, if you're still struggling in this step, you can create a mind map or an outline like this from biggerplate.com. Based on your preliminary reading, draw up a working mind map or outline. Include any important, interesting, or provocative points, including your own ideas about the topic. A mind map is less linear and may even include questions you want to find answers to. Use methods that work best for you. The object is to simply to group ideas in logically related groups. You may revise these mind maps or outline at any given time. It's much easier actually to reorganize a paper by crossing out or adding sections to a mind map or outline than it is to laboriously start over with writing itself. Now, step number 3 is to determine the relevance. As a researcher, I hate it when other people tell you that your research has no relevance. But I also believe that while it's important that your topic is interesting to you, you'll also have to make sure that it's academically, socially, or practically relevant. when we say academic relevance, we mean that the research can fill a gap in knowledge or contribute to a scholarly debate in your field. Social relevance, on the other hand, means that the research can advance our understanding of society and inform social change. Practical relevance, however, means that the research can be applied to solve concrete problems or improve real life processes. The easiest way to make sure your research is relevant is to choose a topic that is clearly connected to current issues or debates, either in society at large or in your academic discipline. The relevance must be clearly stated when you define your research problem. If your program is focused on professional training, like in psychology, you should always consider the professional relevance of your research. For example, by choosing a commercial angle that will be useful in future employment. If you write your research in connection with a job or internship, this will constrain your choice of topics, as your research will need to have practical relevance for the organization. If you choose a topic that is fleeting, like internet memes or TikTok trends or viral videos, while this can be fun to study, you may run the risk of rendering your topic irrelevant by the time you're finished writing your paper. So you have to be very careful with that. Another pro tip is to consider your methods. Now, there are many different types of researches. So at this stage, it's a good idea to start thinking about what kind of approach you'll take to your topic. Will you mainly focus on collecting data or collecting original data, for example, conducting an experimental research or doing a case study? Or will you be analyzing existing data? For example, gathering information from national statistics, public records, or archives? Or will you be interpreting cultural objects such as novels, films, or paintings? Now, you might even be comparing scholarly approaches, for example, theories, methods, or interpretations. Many researchers, however, will combine more than one of these examples. Sometimes the type of research is obvious. If your topic is the psychological implications of the COVID-19 pandemic, you will probably be mainly collecting original data. But in other cases, there are several possible approaches. If your topic is the reproductive rights in the Philippines, you could analyze public documents and media coverage, or you could gather original data through interviews and survey. Now, the point here is that you don't have to finalize your research design and methods yet, but the type of research will influence which aspect of the topic it's possible to address. So it's wise to consider this as you narrow down your ideas. Keep in mind that collecting original data or designing your own skill take a great deal of time. If you don't have a lot of time to spend on your research, it might be best to focus on analyzing existing data from primary and secondary sources. As a side note, when you say primary sources, these things provide raw information and first-hand evidences. For example, you might have interview transcripts or statistical data and works of art. A primary source actually gives you direct access to the subject of your research. A secondary source, however, provides second-hand information and commentary from other researchers. Examples include meta-analysis, reviews, and academic books. Now, a secondary source describes, interprets, or synthesizes primary sources. Now, both primary sources are more credible as evidence, but a good research use both primary and secondary sources. Now, step number 4 is getting your topic approved. Before you make a final decision on your topic, you have to consider again the length of your research, the time frame in which you have to complete it, and the practicalities of conducting the research. Will you have enough time to read all the most important academic literature on this topic? If there's too much information to tackle, consider narrowing your focus even more. Will you be able to find enough sources or gather enough data to fulfill the requirements of your research? If you think you might struggle to find information, consider broadening or shifting your focus. Do you have to go to specific locations to gather data on the topic? Make sure that you have enough funding and practical access, considering that we are in the midst of a pandemic and social and mobility and going to places are restricted at the moment. Last but not the least, will the topic hold your interest for the length of the research process? To stay motivated, it's important to choose something you are enthusiastic about. Now, most programs like that of MTC will require you to submit a brief description of your topics before you are allowed to write a full research proposal. This is actually a good practice as this minimizes topic rejections during oral presentations. Now imagine having to write a full paper only to have it scrapped by your panelists. As mentioned earlier, you're advised to prepare at least 3 topics. The thing is, a particular topic may interest you or you may believe that it carries a particular relevance, but your panelists also have to agree with you on this. Different strokes for different folks, as they say. Remember, if you discover that your topic is not as strong as you thought it was, it's usually acceptable to change your mind and shift focus or switch focus early in the research process. Just make sure you have enough time to start on a new topic and always check with your research professor. Lastly, your research is a work in progress. From the day of its conception up to the day you submit your final manuscript as a final requirement for graduation. You have to train yourself to accept that you will encounter failures along the way. Failures are important in order for you to succeed later on. They do not spell the end but rather point the direction towards success. Now, thank you for watching and see you again next week.